Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing wonderful. Today's video is a continuation of our haunted and makeup series that we started last week for the month of October, where I talk about spooky stories of the most haunted places and houses ever recorded, I guess, and do my makeup at the same time. So just like last week, as I'm telling the story, I will be doing my makeup. I'm not going to talk about what products I'm using, but I'll put those all down in the description box below. So now that we have all that out of the way, let's start with our spooky story. We're going to be talking about the Whaley House. So to understand the story of why this house is haunted, first we need a little bit of backstory, a little bit of history, and the Whaley House, where it's built now, used to be a gallows. Basically, it's where they would take criminals to be hung. And there was one particular case that has been recorded where kind of, so to speak, everything started with a gentleman called Yankee Jim. Now, Yankee Jim had recently come into town, and apparently he had some sticky fingers, and he had been caught trying to steal, because it doesn't sound like he was successful. He was caught trying to steal a boat. He was convicted of grand larceny in 1852. Now, Yankee Jim was a tall man. They say he was over 6 feet. So when they tried to hang him, his feet hung on the wagon or touched the wagon that he was on. So he held on, I guess, for dear life. The local newspaper reported that he, quote, kept his feet on the wagon, and then he was finally pulled off. He swung back and forth like a pendulum until he strangled to death, end quote. What I was reading is that some people thought that it took him about 15 minutes to die, and others say that it took him about 45 minutes to die. There was a gentleman there. His name was Tom Whaley. He was present at this hanging, which is funny because Thomas Whaley later went on to buy this land, which is really creepy. I mean, I'm thinking he must have got a good deal, because I would never, I don't know about you guys, but I would never buy a land where I saw somebody be hung and die, and then know that other people were hung there. They said it was a cemetery as well. So I don't know. Like I said, I have a feeling nobody wanted the land, and he was like, sure, I'll take it. I don't care. I'm not so superstitious. So in 1856, Thomas Whaley built his home and brought his family to live with him. And soon after the family moved in, everything started to happen, because they say that Thomas and Lillian, their youngest daughter, could hear heavy footsteps, like a heavy man wearing boots, and they could hear him walking around or moving things. So Thomas was convinced that it was Yankee Jim who was haunting the house. See, I told you, reason why I wouldn't buy this land. Even I could foresee that happening. Tragedy soon happened, because Thomas Jr. was a baby. He got scarlet fever and died 18 months after his birth, which was super sad. Unfortunately, more tragedy hit, because Thomas had built a general store in the house, but the general store, after the baby died, the general store all of a sudden started on fire. There was a fire. So they decided to try their luck in a different place, and Thomas moved his family up to San Francisco. San Francisco, it sounds like he did well, but they didn't want to stay there because apparently there was an earthquake which sent them back home to the original Whaley house. So they couldn't really kind of get rid of the house or stay away, and thought maybe they might be cursed. I don't know. They got back to their home and settled back in, and of course, tragedy struck again. It seems that their daughter, Violet Whaley, married George T. Bertuccelli, and it said that 2 weeks into their honeymoon, they had an extended honeymoon. One day she woke up and he was gone. They later come to find out that he was actually a con artist who had envisioned getting the father-in-law's money, or he probably thought that he was going to get a dowry from marrying Violet. But when he discovered that you're getting nothing, you got to work for it. You got to work for your wife. He was gone. He just took off. He was like, I'm out of here. No money, no marriage. So, of course, Violet was devastated. And when she went back home, she was so ashamed, and she was basically shunned by society because it took about a year for her to get a divorce, first of all. And society wanted nothing to do with her. Back in the day, it was unheard of women being divorced. So sadly, one day she just couldn't take it anymore. She went into the back of the house, a backyard, and at the age of 22, she shot herself with a .32 caliber gun in the heart. It said that her dad brought her in and took her to, I guess, like the parlor room or whatever. But she shot herself in the heart, so she died. So again, tragedy. I feel so bad for them. It's like, geez, can't catch a break. So after all these tragic events, they were like, we're out of here again. So Thomas built a home not far from the original Whaley House. They moved, he built that home, and he moved his family over there. That's, they say, where he ended up dying. He died in the home that he built that was close by. Then his son Francis, because the house was abandoned, the original homestead was abandoned, and basically for like 2 decades. So when Thomas died, Francis took over the house, and he wanted to renovate it. So he went back and started the renovation. And instead of just making it a home, he turned it into a tourist attraction where he would play the guitar and sing. And it's said that he and his sisters, Anne, and his mom, Anne, Thomas's widow, they all died basically in that house. Because I guess they had all moved back, I guess, once Tom died. And after the family died, that house was a lot of things. It was rented. It was turned into a courthouse. So finally in 1960, they turned it into a museum. So, and this museum is basically where all the stories of haunting come from. There's a lot of paranormal activity in the house. Some people report to have seen Thomas at the top of the stairs with a top hat and his coat. He just disappears. He doesn't look at the visitors, and they report that he just kind of fades away. And you can hear a baby crying, which we assume is Thomas Jr. that died back long time ago. The child that died of scarlet fever. You can hear a baby giggle, and sometimes you can hear even tiny footsteps. Also, one of the curators of the museum says that a little girl of 5-6 years old, she was pointing to something and waving, and told people that she was looking at a man, that there was a man there. So they assumed that she was looking at maybe, because kids are more sensitive to that kind of thing. So they assumed maybe she was looking at Jim or one of those, or maybe Tom. I don't know, because it said that also Anne is there as well. They've seen her appear, which doesn't sound like any of them left the house, which is interesting to me. In the courtroom, they see also a young lady in one of the chairs. They see her in the back. She's just sitting there, and it could have been maybe a gal that lived there as a renters, because it's said that they don't think she's part of the Whaley family, that she might have been somebody afterwards. I mean, with all those deaths there. And they say that even there's a vortex of paranormal activity there, that you can actually feel the energy of spirits. I don't know what spirits' energy might feel like, but they claim that there's a vortex. Of course, they brought in a ton of like mediums and people to visit at night when they can see if they can catch some paranormal activity. And if you go on the website to the Whaley House, you can see pictures, because they encourage people that take pictures to post these pictures on their website, because a lot of people take pictures and they find a lot of like orbs. Those orbs that supposedly say that they're spirits in the pictures, the orbs mean that there's somebody standing there. There's a gentleman that actually thinks he took a picture of Jim looking out the window You could see it there. You could totally see a face in the window. So those pictures are pretty interesting to look at. One of the interesting stories also was that there was a cop, patrolling the neighborhood. He was doing his rounds and he could hear a girl crying. They say that when he came up to the girl and said, because, her back was to him, he came up to her and he said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" Said that she turned and smiled at him, and that when he shined his light on her, she pretty much disappeared. And he did not want anybody to know this story. I think it was told until after he passed away, because he was kind of probably embarrassed, like, what just happened? There's so much activity in this house that even dogs or pets have been spotted in the house. Apparently, somebody saw a terrier in the house. This house is visited by thousands of people every year. Apparently, these ghosts are not shy, and they do show themselves to the visitors. They saw this terrier run around, and it is said that the Whaleys had a terrier named Dolly Varden, which I find that hilarious. Dolly Varden? I don't think Dolly Parton is that old. I don't know. It just reminded me of Dolly Parton for some reason. It was weird. Anyway, the show from Travel Channel, Ghost Hunters, has been there. And they claim it's the most haunted house in America. Where, I guess, the Whaley House is in the world. I don't know. Because, this is an opinion from Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures from the Travel Channel show. So everybody's got their own opinions on how spooky they think this house is. So, the houses are that they visit. So yeah, what do you guys think? They say you can also feel a lot of sadness in certain rooms and heaviness, and there's cold spots in the house because probably Violet shot herself, and that energy must still be there. Not just her sadness, but the sadness of the parents of losing a child, because I can't imagine how hard that would be, especially that Tom went to get her from the backyard and bring her into the house, and then she died. So, there's got to be a lot of sadness. It doesn't sound like there's evil. Like when we talked about the Whaley House, that it sounded like there was a lot of evil in that house, because obviously she was evil. But in this house, it's just more about people dying and tragedy. Not that that's any better. But you know what I mean. It's not evil stuff. And, back in the day, if you committed a crime, you were hung. That's just the way things were. The part that I don't understand is why would you think that building a house on a spot where people were hung for their crimes would be a good idea? That's when I first started reading the story, I was like, what? That would be like the farthest. But again, that's what I think. I think that it was just a really good deal that he couldn't pass up, because one of the articles I read, he had said that he was going to have the nicest, most comfiest house for miles around, because it is a very nice house. I mean, if you go see it and go in, now I know that's another one on my list, on my destination. Once we can travel again, of course. It's just very historical. I mean, you look at the rooms, if you go online it's called the whaleyhouse.org, I believe, and you look at the house pictures inside. Even if you Google it, they have the pictures like slide by. And it's preserved like back in the day. They preserved it. It's because it's got a lot of history in it. I mean, there's a courthouse. So that is the story of the Whaley House. If you haven't watched my other one, I will put that one up here so you can check out last week's, which is the Laurie Mansion. And again, I'll be here on next Thursday with another story. Let's see what spooky story I find for you guys. And before I go, I definitely want to ask you guys, if you want to see more content like this, to please subscribe and ring that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. And also, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy haunted stories like I do. And I will see you next week. Be healthy, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.